They walk into a room and feel every emotion before a single word is spoken. They smile while silently reading the hidden war behind someone's eyes. They can hear confidence cracking underneath perfect sentences, and the most dangerous thing about them is this: they pretend they don't notice the world. Calls them too sensitive because the world fears people who can see through masks. Because highly aware empaths are not weak people drowning in emotion. They are human lie detectors trapped inside soft hearts, and once they wake up to their power, they become impossible to manipulate. Most people think awareness is intelligence. No, awareness is survival. Awareness is seeing patterns others ignore. Awareness is feeling danger before it arrives. Awareness is sensing fake love hiding behind beautiful words, and the moment an empath stops apologizing for this gift, everything changes. Highly aware empaths can walk into a room and feel tension. Before a single person speaks, they can sense jealousy, hiding behind compliments, resentment, hiding behind silence, manipulation, hiding behind charm, and fake confidence, hiding behind loud personalities. Most people only hear words, but empaths hear emotional intelligence. Intention, and emotional intention never lies. That is why highly aware empaths often feel exhausted around certain people without understanding why. Their nervous system detects danger before their conscious mind catches up. A manipulator can fake kindness, but they cannot fake energy forever. Sooner or later, the mask slips and the empath notices it instantly. A delayed smile, a forced laugh, a strange pause before answering, eyes that look empty while saying "I love you," energy that changes when powerful people enter the room. Empaths notice all of it, not because they are paranoid, because they are observant on a level most people will never understand, while others are hypnotized by appearances. The empath is reading emotional contradictions. They notice when someone acts differently around different people. They notice when kindness disappears the second nobody is watching. They notice when someone only reaches out when they need validation. They notice when words sound warm but intentions feel cold, and the terrifying part is this: empaths usually know exactly who someone is long before proof appears, but they ignore themselves. That is where the suffering begins, because the empath's intuition whispers the truth early, but their heart keeps negotiating with reality. Maybe they're just stressed. Maybe they didn't mean it. Maybe they'll change. Maybe I'm overthinking. No, the empath was right from the beginning. That strange feeling in the chest, that emotional heaviness around someone, that unexplained discomfort after conversations, that inner voice saying something feels off, that was not anxiety, that was awareness. But the world teaches empaths to doubt themselves, to ignore instincts, to prioritize politeness over protection, to give endless chances to people who repeatedly damage them. And because of that conditioning, empaths become magnets for toxic personalities. Manipulators love people who question their own intuition, because once you doubt yourself, you become easier to control. That is why narcissists often target empaths first. Not because empaths are weak, because empaths are weak, because empaths are deeply compassionate, and toxic people survive by feeding on compassion without accountability. At first, the narcissist feels seen by the empath, understood, validated, admired, but eventually something changes. The empath starts noticing inconsistencies, the mask starts cracking, the charm starts feeling rehearsed, the affection starts feeling transactional, and suddenly the narcissist becomes uncomfortable, because nobody fears awareness more than someone living behind a performance. Highly aware empaths can feel when someone is lying, even when the story sounds perfect, because lies create emotional friction, and empaths detect friction immediately. The body speaks before words do. Energy speaks before behavior does. Intentions leak through micro expressions constantly. The empath notices the fake concern, the controlled tone, the hidden irritation behind polite sentences, the smile that disappears too fast. Most people are blind to these signals. Empaths absorb them automatically. That is why they often feel emotionally unsafe around people others admire. Everyone says, "He's so charming, she's so sweet, they seem amazing." Meanwhile, the empath feels something dark underneath the surface, and months later the truth finally explodes: the betrayal, the manipulation, the cheating, the emotional abuse. Then everyone asks the empath the same question: how did you know? Because awareness sees what appearances hide. Highly aware empaths are constantly collecting emotional data without realizing it. Every interaction leaves clues, every inconsistency creates tension, every fake emotion creates imbalance, and over time the empath develops almost surgical accuracy about human behavior. Not because they studied psychology, because survival forced them to read people deeply. Many empaths grew up in emotionally unstable environments. They learned to scan moods for safety, to predict emotional explosions, to sense danger before it arrived there. Awareness was born from adaptation, and what once protected them in childhood becomes a superpower in adulthood, but only after healing, because an unhealed empath uses awareness to survive others. A healed empath uses awareness to protect themselves. That changes everything. Now they stop ignoring red flags. Now they stop romanticizing potential. Now they stop confusing chemistry with emotional safety. They realize attraction means nothing without consistency. Words mean nothing without behavior. Promises mean nothing without action. And suddenly manipulation stops working on them, because highly aware empaths eventually understand one brutal truth: patterns never lie. Someone who constantly disrespects boundaries will continue to disrespect. Cutting boundaries. Someone who only loves you when you are useful does not love you. Someone who drains your energy every time you speak is revealing their nature clearly. Awareness is not judging people harshly. Awareness is finally seeing reality honestly. That is why healed empaths become incredibly selective with relationships. Not cold, not heartless, just conscious. They stop giving unlimited access to emotionally dangerous people. They stop explaining their worth to those committed to misunderstanding them. They stop trying to heal people who enjoy staying broken, because awareness teaches empaths the difference between helping and self-destruction. And once that lesson is learned, the empath transforms completely. Now they trust their instincts immediately. Now they leave the moment peace disappears. Now they recognize emotional manipulation in seconds. Now they stop confusing guilt with love. And this creates a version of the empath that terrifies toxic people, because manipulators rely on emotional confusion. But highly aware empaths eventually become impossible to confuse. They can feel dishonesty instantly. They can sense hidden motives quickly. They can detect insecurity hiding beneath the arrogance, and they can recognize emotional predators before attachment blinds them. That is why awakened empaths no longer chase people. They observe, they listen, they feel, and they trust what their nervous system tells them, because experience taught them something painful. The body notices danger long before the mind accepts it, and the moment an empath stops betraying their own intuition to keep people comfortable, their entire life changes forever. Empaths suffer the most when they absorb everyone's emotions without boundaries, because they were never taught the difference between compassion and self-destruction. They walk into broken environments and immediately feel responsible for fixing the pain. They meet damaged people and instantly begin carrying emotional weight that was never theirs to carry. They confuse healing others with earning love, and little by little, they disappear inside everyone else's chaos. That is the silent tragedy of the empath. They become emotional homes for people who would never survive the storms they create in Macon. Others, the empath listens, understands, comforts, forgives, sacrifices, and gives pieces of themselves away every single day, until one morning, why wake up emotionally exhausted without understanding why they feel empty? Because nobody warned them that constantly absorbing negativity slowly destroys the nervous system. Nobody warned them that some people are emotional parasites disguised as victims. Nobody warned them that toxic people are drawn to kind hearts the same way darkness is drawn to light. Highly aware empaths absorb energy automatically. They feel tension inside conversations, pain inside silence, fear behind anger, loneliness behind arrogance. Even when people say nothing, the empath feels everything, and because they feel everything so deeply, they spend years becoming emotional shock absorbers for everyone around them. The family depends on them emotionally, friends dump trauma onto them endlessly, partners expect unconditional understanding while giving nothing back, and the empath keeps saying yes because they believe. Love means sacrifice, but sacrifice without boundaries becomes emotional suicide. The empath starts losing sleep, losing peace, losing identity, losing emotional stability. They become mentally exhausted from carrying emotions that do not belong to them. And the terrifying part is this: most empaths do even realize they are being drained, because toxic people rarely look toxic in the beginning. Sometimes they look wounded, sensitive, misunderstood. Broken and empaths have a dangerous weakness for broken people. They see potential instead of patterns, pain instead of accountability, excuses instead of reality, so they stay longer than they should, give more than they should, forgive more than they should. And slowly the relationship becomes one-sided battle. emotional labor, the empath becomes therapist, motivator, caretaker, emotional punching bag, while the other person keeps consuming without changing. That is why so many empaths feel exhausted around certain people. Their soul recognizes emotional imbalance even when their heart wants to deny it. One conversation can drain them for hours, one toxic interaction can destroy their peace for days, because empaths do not simply hear emotions. They internalize them. They carry sadness home, carry anxiety home, carry anger home, and over time their body starts collapsing under emotional overload. The anxiety increases, the burnout deepens, the emotional numbness appears, not because the empath is weak, because no human being was designed to carry the emotional weight of everyone around them. And this is the moment that changes everything for the empath, the moment they finally realize not everyone deserves access to your energy. That realization feels almost illegal at first, because empaths were conditioned to believe boundaries are selfish. Saying no is rude, protecting peace is cold-hearted. So when they finally begin choosing themselves, people become angry. The same people who benefited from empaths' endless emotional availability suddenly accuse them of changing. You're distant now. You used to care more. You've become selfish. No, the empath finally stopped abandoning themselves to rescue people committed to drowning, and toxic people hate boundaries because boundaries expose their dependency. The empath begins noticing something shocking. Healthy people respect boundaries immediately. Toxic people punish them. That truth alone changes the empath forever. Now they start paying attention to how people react when denied access. Some become manipulative, some guilt trip, some play victim, some become cruel the moment control disappears, and suddenly the empath sees reality clearly for the first time. Some people never loved tea. They loved access to their emotional energy. That realization breaks the empath open, because they finally understand why they always felt drained after certain relationships, why they always felt emotionally heavy around certain friends, why they constantly felt responsible for fixing everyone. They were surrounded by emotional consumers. People who took empathy as weakness, kindness as permission, compassion as unlimited supply. But once an empath awakens to this pattern, everything changes permanently. Now they stop over-explaining themselves. Now they stop answering every emotional emergency. Now they stop sacrificing mental health to keep dysfunctional relationships alive, and the most powerful shift happens internally. The empath stops feeling guilty for protecting their peace. That is the birth of emotional freedom, because healed empaths understand something most people never learn. You cannot save people who are addicted to chaos. You cannot heal people who weaponize their pain against others. You cannot pour infinite love into someone determined to remain emotionally destructive. At some point, compassion must include yourself, and that lesson transforms the empath into someone almost unrecognizable. Now they become selective with energy, selective with conversations, selective with environments. They stop tolerating constant negativity. Stop entertaining manipulative behavior, stop giving endless emotional access to unstable people, not because they stopped caring, because they finally started caring about themselves too. That balance is where true power begins, because the healed empath is no longer emotionally available for everyone, and suddenly their energy changes completely. They become calmer, clearer, stronger, harder to manipulate. Toxic people can no longer guilt them into emotional exhaustion. Drama can no longer hook them emotionally. Fake crises no longer control their nervous system. The empath finally realizes they were never meant to carry the world on their shoulders. They were meant to protect their light from people who feed on it endlessly. And once boundaries become stronger than guilt, the empath becomes emotionally unstoppable. Now they can love without losing themselves, help without self-destruction, care without emotional collapse. Now they understand that protecting peace is not selfish. It is survival, because the world will consume every piece of a kind person who never learns to say enough. And the most dangerous empath in existence is not the one who feels deeply. It is the one who finally learns when to walk away. A healed empath changes the energy of every room without saying a single word, because authenticity has a power that performance can never imitate. Most people spend their entire lives hiding pain behind humor, insecurity, behind arrogance, loneliness, behind attention, fear, behind control. But a healed empath walks into the room carrying something rare: emotional truth. And truth is dangerous in a world built on masks. That is why people react so strongly to deeply aware empaths, not because the empath is loud, not because they are trying to dominate anyone, but because authentic energy silently exposes everything fake around it. A healed empath does not need to announce their strength. People feel it immediately. The calmness, the emotional control, the grounded presence, the ability to look directly into someone's eyes without performing for approval. That kind of energy unsettles people who survive through manipulation, because manipulators rely on emotional confusion, but healed empaths create emotional clarity, and clarity destroys illusion. That is why some people instantly feel safe around a healed empath, while others immediately feel threatened. The safe people feel understood. The fake people feel exposed. A healed empath can sit quietly beside someone and make them confront emotions they spent years avoiding. Not intentionally, not through force, but through presence alone, because authentic people become mirrors, and mirrors terrify people living behind false identities. Suddenly, the loud person becomes uncomfortable, the attention seeker loses control, the manipulator cannot read the empath emotionally anymore. Why? Because healed empaths stop reacting the way toxic people expect them to react. They no longer beg for validation, no longer chase approval, no way longer emotionally collapse when someone withdraws affection, and toxic people panic when emotional control stops working. The healed empath becomes emotionally unpredictable to manipulators. Guilt no longer controls them. Silent treatment no longer weakens them. Love bombing no longer blinds them. That transformation changes every dynamic around them, because people can feel when someone finally values themselves and the energy. Why of self-respect is powerful beyond words. A healed empath no longer enters rooms trying to be liked by everyone. They enter rooms fully connected to themselves. That authenticity forces people to reveal who they really are. Emotionally mature people become calmer around them. Emotionally dishonest people become defensive around them, because awareness creates pressure for honesty, pressure for accountability, pressure for emotional depth, and shallow people cannot survive long under that pressure. That is why healed empaths often lose relationships after awakening. Not because they became cruel, because they stopped participating in fake dynamics. They stopped pretending disrespect is normal. Stop laughing at manipulative behavior. Stop tolerating emotional games for temporary connection, and suddenly the people who once felt comfortable around them begin disappearing. The empath finally understands something heartbreaking. Some people only love the version of them that tolerated mistreatment. The healed empath no longer exists to make emotionally immature people comfortable. That realization changes everything, because now the empath stops shrinking themselves, no more lowering standards to avoid abandonment, no more silence to avoid conflict, no more emotional self-betrayal to maintain toxic peace. Now their presence alone challenges people to grow, and many people hate growth, because growth requires accountability, growth requires honesty, growth requires confronting wounds instead of projecting them onto others. An healed empath unintentionally forces that confrontation. Their boundaries force people to face entitlement. Their calmness exposes emotional instability. Their honesty exposes deception. That is why healed empaths are often misunderstood by toxic people. The manipulator calls them cold. The narcissist calls them selfish. The controller calls them difficult, because emotionally unhealthy people interpret boundaries as rejection, but healthy people see something completely different. They see wisdom, strength, emotional intelligence, peace. A healed empath becomes proof that kindness does not require self-sacrifice. That is why their energy becomes contagious. People around them begin waking up too. Someone starts questioning a toxic relationship. Someone starts respecting themselves more. Someone starts realizing they deserve better, because authentic energy, RGY, awakens sleeping parts of other people. The healed empath gives silent permission for others to stop abandoning themselves, and that kind of influence is more powerful than motivation speeches, more powerful than fake confidence, more powerful than attention-seeking charisma, because truth changes people at the soul level. The healed empath also develops something extremely rare in this world: emotional detachment without losing compassion. This is what makes them almost impossible to manipulate. Before healing, they tried saving everyone. After healing, they understand that not everyone wants to be saved. Some people enjoy chaos, some people protect dysfunction, some people weaponize pain to control others, and the healed empath stops wasting energy trying to rescue those committed to destruction. That emotional maturity creates unbelievable peace inside them. Now they can walk away without hatred, say no without guilt, protect boundaries without explaining themselves endlessly, and people feel that strength immediately because real power is calm. Real power does not scream, does not beg, does not chase. Real power sits quietly in self-awareness. That is the energy healed empaths carry. And the world reacts to it intensely because most people are disconnected from themselves. A healed empath reminds people of everything they suppress. The truth, they avoid; the pain, they hide; the authenticity, they abandon to gain acceptance. Some people feel inspired by this energy, others resent it deeply because healed empaths unknowingly expose the emotional emptiness behind performance-based living. No fake mask survives long around deep awareness. Eventually, people either become more honest around the empath, or they disappear completely and honestly. That is the greatest gift of all, because the healed empath no longer fears losing people who cannot meet them at the level of truth. They understand peace is more valuable than forced connection. They understand protecting energy is more important than being endlessly available. They understand authenticity will naturally repel fake people. And for the first time in their life, they stop seeing that as loneliness. They start seeing it as freedom. The healed empath finally realizes they were never too much for the world. The world was simply uncomfortable around someone who could no longer be manipulated by illusion.